getting trapped. It's okay to move the stuff around? Thank you. Yeah, we get so used to doing things a certain way. It's like, oh, can't do that, or time to stand up and sit down and all that stuff. I can brought some charts and graphs. Might use them. I don't want to sound, just flippant, I spent a lot of this week kind of on my knees, even on my face, saying, like, God, I'm just not worthy to open your word in front of other people. But you know what he said? I'm sending you anyway. In the last year, how many messages have you heard on sin? At least one? Raise your hand if you heard at least one on sin. How many in the last year if you've heard more than like 10? Yeah, lots of hands. If you've been a Christian for like 20, 30 years, do you think you've heard at least 100 sermons on sin? Not a problem. How about on the birth of Christ? Over the years, lots of sermons on that? The death of Christ? The resurrection of Christ? How about on the wrath and the fury of God? You hear that very often? How about heaven? Yeah, not so much. In 2010, my wife and I were members of the Milford Bible Church. Big church. It'd be like 500-600 people sometimes on a Sunday morning. And I was teaching through the book of Revelation through an adult Sunday school class. And as I got towards the end of Revelation, where it talks about, hey, where are we going to spend like forever? It's kind of a long time. And so I started looking through, different commentaries and books I have, and I just couldn't find anything. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll just go by memory. Maybe I've heard some messages over the years, and I'll use that. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, I've been a Christian for like over 20 years at that point. I'm thinking, I've never even heard a message on heaven or the afterlife, or where do you go when you die, and like what happens. So I started calling some pastors, some friends of mine, saying like, hey, you guys ever taught on this or preached on it? Give me some guidance. You got a book or something I can read? And there'll always be like a silence at the end of the phone. And I can almost like picture them. Some of them had beards, they'd be stroking their beards, and others would be like thinking, and like it was always like a blank. So they hadn't either. And so I started asking other Christians I would just meet in my daily course of life. Hey, have you heard about heaven? And I found like zero. I found that like really odd. Here's what a Christian brother wrote a long time ago. He says, the man who is about to sail for Australia or New Zealand as a settler is naturally anxious to know something about his future home, its climates, its employments, its inhabitants, its ways, its customs. All these are subjects of deep interest to him. You're leaving the land of your nativity. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a new hemisphere. It would be strange indeed if you do not desire information about your new abode. Now surely, if we hope to dwell forever in that better country, even a heavenly one, we ought to seek all the knowledge we can get about it. Before we go to our eternal home, we should try to become acquainted with it. It makes a lot of sense. I'm going someplace for the rest of my life, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and yet I never even hear people talk about it. When I was teaching that Sunday school class in Milford, there's usually like 30, 40 adults who would come out each Sunday, and generally they're mature. They've been saved for a long time. And so I even asked them, I said, hey, when's the last time you guys heard a sermon on heaven? And there was like a blank. There's this one lady, she was like 85 years old. Here's, oh, Brother Joe, like when I was like a young girl in Scandinavia, I remember there was like a traveling evangelist or maybe a guest preacher, and like he taught on heaven. So I think, okay, someone heard something like 70 years ago. Yay! In a different country. I just found that puzzling. But then I started thinking to myself, well, why don't we hear about heaven? I mean, if I've heard 8,000 sermons on sin, and like I know God is holy at this point, after 20 years of hearing it, I know God is holy. I get it. I know I'm a sinner. I get it. I know I deserve to go to hell. I get it. I've heard about God's grace. I thank God for that. I'm glad he gave me the gift of repentance, the gift of faith, and the gift of grace. I'm glad he saved me. I'm glad I'm born again. But like, that's just like one thing. Like, where's it leading to exactly? That's what I hope we can figure out today. I know, I mean, it's a huge subject, and we're not used to hearing about it, but I'll almost guarantee you, the stuff I'm going to show you, or talk about, or however God is going to bring this out, I don't even know how he's going to do it. I may need the charts and graphs. It's really, it's quite fascinating. I hope we all leave here like 6 inches off the ground. I hope if you're battling something, you're going to be so encouraged. You're saying, woohoo, this is like, I can do this now. I get it. So, yeah, there's a, I'm thankful for, I'll give the plug now. Let me see it. What saved me at Milford Bible College, I couldn't find anything anywhere to use. And my daughter was just starting the Baptist Bible College for her first semester, so we had to go to the bookstore. I think, oh, there's got to be some books on heaven in here. It's a Bible college, there must be. And I think this book probably had just come out because all along one of the walls in the library or in the bookstore was this book called Heaven. I mean, there's like probably like 30, 40, 50 copies of it. And I'm saying to myself, Lord, just give me a sign. You know, what should I read? I thank God for Randy Alcorn writing this book on heaven. And I'll tell you, if your appetite gets whetted today, I'd really encourage you. You should get this and read this. Now, obviously, you know, Randy hasn't been to heaven. I haven't been to heaven. You haven't been to heaven. So, I mean, there are some things we have to be, like, kind of careful that we talk about. But I think there's a lot of things that we can talk about with great certainty. There are some people who will say, like, well, you know, eye has not seen or ear has not heard the things that God has prepared for them. You know, we really can't, you know, understand the secret things belong to God. But like the rest of that verse says, but like God has revealed them to us by his Spirit, who he's given to us. So, yeah, I think we can probably understand a lot more than we think. So I'll start with my first chart and graph here. Let's see if I have some tape. Sorry if you guys in the front, you're probably going to be a little too close to this. But I almost had to do this. This is why I had to move this back. Because I think I'll probably kind of get in front of here. Because when we talk about heaven, like it means different things. I'm going to heaven when I die. Well, which one? There's more than one? Well, yeah. Oh. Well, I'm not sure then. You ever go to a funeral and someone says, I'm definitely going to hell when I die? Well, no, they always say, oh, I'm going to heaven. Doesn't matter if they're a believer or not. He's in a better place. Everybody, for some reason, thinks it's like a default. I'm going there. Well, it's not. You know, it's kind of invitation only. But so if you can't read this, don't worry. That's just because of the sin nature. Your eyes don't work that good. So this is kind of a proof that what God says is true. And hey, I thank you, Brother Randy Alcorn, because I took a lot of this from his book because it made it clear to me. So I'm thinking, I hope it'll make it clear to you. Brother Dave Lindahl gave me an idea for something else I'm going to use. Thank you, Dave. You don't even know that. You never know how you affect other people, do you? So I'll just start like this. Past, present, and future. Easy peasy. In the past, something happened. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There it is. And in Revelation 21, and I saw a new heavens and a new earth. Okay, there's that same language again. You got to think of it like bookends. You've got Genesis chapter 1 and 2 where God comes down to the earth, you know, and the Holy Spirit is, you know, brooding over the face of the deep, and God speaks, let there be light, and, you know, all this creation takes place. So you've got these basically 2 chapters, and then something really bad happens, sin, you know, crash and burn. And then you've got these 2 chapters on the other end of the Bible. So you've got these 2 chapters here and 2 chapters here. God creates heaven and the earth, God creates a new heaven and the earth. And in between is where you and I live, in between those 2 bookmarks. But there's like an incredible symmetry. They almost mirror each other. They almost like are images of each other, these first 2 chapters and these last 2 chapters. And there's a lot we can learn. And there's really a lot to be encouraged for. Even though I'll probably spend, at least some of the time talking about this place we're in now. But that's okay. That's just temporary. So, I mean, if you think about it, God comes down and he makes this place, this earth. And he says, like, it's really good. After 6 days, like, he makes everything. And he says, man, this isn't like good. This is like very good. And like, if God is saying this is like very good, I mean, you're talking like perfection. It was perfect. He says, I didn't like just create this, just for something to do. I actually have something in mind. I have a plan. There's something I actually want to do. I'm going to make someone that's kind of like me, in my image. And this is where I want them to live. And so I'm going to make them this great place. Where should I do this? Well, that section of the earth, it's named Eden. I don't even know who came up with the name Eden. It means very pleasant. I'm going to go to this pleasant place, and I'm going to build this garden. So it's even going to be almost like more extraordinary than everything that I've already done. And I don't know how you like improve on perfection, but that's the way I see it. It's like, here's this perfect world that God has made. And he says, in this perfect world, I'm going to make something even more perfecter? I don't know if that's a word. But he's going to make this place. And he says, okay, now here's what I'm going to do. The original mankind. He says, I think I'll take some dust here from this earth, because that's where man is supposed to live, on the earth. And so he forms it, and he breathes his spirit into this body, and man becomes a living soul. And he says, okay, now I'm gonna take this man, I'm gonna put him in this specially made garden, custom made just for him. It's got everything that he needs. All the food that he needs is there. The fresh air, just the beauty of the place that I have made. Like I've handcrafted this just for him to just be delighted to have life and live. And it's this great place. So we'll call it the garden. We call it the Garden of Eden. It's really the garden that was in Eden, but that's okay. We'll call it the Garden of Eden. And there is no sin at this point. Now that's something we really can't imagine. Could you imagine getting up in the morning and like having no bad thoughts about yourself and about other people? Could you imagine like getting up like without a backache? Oh man, there's the alarm, I gotta get up. Oh, I gotta stretch. Oh my gosh, where's my pills? Oh, we gotta reach my glasses. Yeah, my eyesight's kind of bad. It's like, where's my glasses? I got to tune up the hearing aid. Something's wrong with those ears that used to work good. But like, there's no sin. I imagine this original guy, Adam, when he woke up, he probably like couldn't wait to start the day. Man, I can't wait to work in the garden. I think I'm gonna maybe make a rock wall over there and like make some waterfalls, come down. Maybe I'll transplant some of these bushes like over here and like make them grow even better. Like, he probably just couldn't wait to get up and start his day in the garden. Because God said, I just want you to, tend to till it. You've got, a job to do. But like, it was a job he loved. But as time went on, he was kind of lonely. God brings all the animals to him, and he says, you gotta, name all these things. Well, Adam, he must have had quite an intellect, to name the massive variety of, all the animals that God had made. And so then he says, well, I got to make him a wife. He needs a helpmate. And, so he takes one of his ribs and he makes him the perfect wife. Man, what would that be like? I have a perfect wife. In every sense of the word, she's perfect. We'll never have an argument. We'll probably never, well, maybe we'll like disagree about something. Like, hon, do you think these new plants, we should like put them over here or over there? Oh, hon, I think they look much better over there. But they had like this perfect relationship with each other. They were absolutely gorgeous. We don't even know what they look like, really. How tall were they or what color their hair is. But whatever it is, they were perfect because God made them. So he takes the rib out and he makes the woman. And this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. It's interesting, in the entire human body, there's one bone that if it's surgically removed properly, it will grow back. Do you know what it is? It's the rib. It's kind of weird. That's not weird. God doesn't do weird stuff. He does stuff that's perfect. So they're in this great place, and like there's no sin, there's no death, there's no curse, there's no mosquitoes flying around biting them. You know, there's no weeds growing that they got to pull. You know, the lions aren't, crouched, in the bushes waiting for them to come by, and they're going to jump up and, attack them, kill them, and eat them, and all that stuff. No, it wasn't there. It just wasn't there. They got this tree of life. They're in this absolute paradise. We really can't imagine what that was like because we weren't there. We live in a much different age. But it was like that. We can still see traces of it. This is my, let me get my Dave Lindo inspiration here. He was teaching a Sunday school class when we were over at the school. I'm not even sure what he was teaching about to bring this up. I found it fascinating, and it stuck. I'm kind of a visual learner, so that's why I kind of do these things sometimes. So, everybody see what this says? Image, right? Adam was made in the image of God. Now, God is spirit, doesn't have a body, except God the Son did. He has a body. But God said, I'm going to make Adam in my image. Well, what does that mean exactly? Believe it or not, all this is going to make sense when we get over here. So don't think like, hey, why are we talking about Garden of Eden? I thought we were talking about heaven. Well, God is a moral being, isn't he? He knows the difference between right and wrong, and he thinks about things in certain ways. And like, well, Adam, you're going to reflect my image in that way. And oh, by the way, I speak. The animals don't, but like Adam, you're going to kind of reflect my image that you get to speak. God is a creator. He created the world in 6 days. Adam, I'm going to give you this ability. You're going to have an imagination. You're going to think about things. You're going to be able to create things. That's kind of part of my image too. I'm righteous. The way I made you perfect, Adam, you're righteous also. And so like when you think about all these different kind of things, like this image starts to grow. Like Adam is basically an image bearer of God. Now what does God do in the heavens? Well, he creates things there. He lives there. We know at least there's a city there, there's a temple there, there's a throne there, there's a water of life there, there's trees there, there's chariots and horses and all kinds of inhabitants, there's angels there. I mean, it's a big place where he lives. And there's a lot of beings that live there. But God is said to fill the heavens and the earth. His glory fills the heavens and the earth. He says, Adam, like, I want you to do that too. You're my image bearer, so I want you to be fruitful and multiply. That's part of the reason I gave you Eve. And I want you to fill the earth also. I want you to go to the four corners of the earth using all the creativity I gave you, using all the moral goodness I gave you, the righteousness that I gave you, the ability to speak and think and communicate and make things. And I want you to basically fill the earth with the glory of me. I do that in heaven. I want you to do that here on earth. So you're going to be like my image bearer. And there's a whole message just in that, but we don't have time for that. But he's to be an image of his creator. But when sin came, and we don't need to go into the whole story, something happened to the image. Man, it got messed up. Can you still see the word? Kind of through there? You can still see a little bit of it. You know what it used to be, right? But it's not that anymore. Oh, it used to be this. Man, I can see that good, but like now, darn, now it's this. But we can still see part of the image of God. We can see it in creation. Go to the Grand Canyon. My goodness, if that doesn't take your breath away, I don't know what will. Go to the Alps. Look at the snow-covered peaks, and I mean, just sit on the shore of the ocean. I mean, God's glory of what the original earth may have been, you can still see glimpses of it, but it's not clear anymore. But even though we look through a glass darkly, you can still see some of it. And even in man, his image bearer, I mean, in the sin nature, it's kind of hard to see God at all. But when people get saved, they change spiritually. We died spiritually with Adam in the garden, and the sin affected everything. The way we think about God, and the way we talk, and our behavior, and our dreams and imaginations, it's really ungodly. But when a man is like born again, his spirit kind of gets restored to what it used to be, and we begin to see godliness in people that wasn't there before. There's a whole bunch of if I can find, there's a whole bunch of words that we use in the Bible constantly. The re words, the re words. It's just a prefix. Okay, re. Okay, it means to return something to its original condition. Something that was ruined. So, when we talk about like reconciliation, Jesus Christ has reconciled us to God. Well, what does that mean? Well, we used to have a relationship with God. Well, Adam used to have a relationship with God, but it got really messed up. So like Jesus comes and he reconciles us kind of back to what we used to be. Not perfectly, obviously, because we still got the sin in us. And, we're redeemed. Well, Adam used to have complete freedom. He wasn't under bondage of sin, but when he sinned and it passed to me, well, now I'm in bondage of sin, and I need to be redeemed from that. I need to have those chains, broken off. And we talk about that the redemption is in the blood of Christ. All these rewords, restore and recover, return, renew, regenerate, resurrect. We talk about these all the time in the way they tie into the gospel. But there's something much deeper going on here. It's like we're almost getting like a little taste of paradise lost, of a relationship with God that used to be unbroken, of a nice relationship with other people. Here we have like the church. I mean, this is really quite astounding. In the book of John, which Brother Bill is preaching through right now, there's lots of miracles in the book of John. And they're there for a reason, a very specific reason. They're signs. They signify. That word signify, it starts with the word sign. They signify that Jesus is the Christ. And so when Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life, and he raises people from the dead, there's signs that point to him like, yes, I am actually who I say I am. I'm the light of the world. Okay, here, you have your eyesight back. I'm the bread of life. Let me feed 5,000 people. So these signs, these miracles that he's done, point to him as a creator, as the God-man, who's come to, what's he come here? To redeem us, to recover us, to resurrect us, to reconcile us. So even though those miracles had kind of a specific meaning in John's context at least, I think they have I think he was almost like showing us, it's like, oh yeah, I can actually, you got a withered hand, I'll restore it. Paralyzed man, get up, take up your bed, walk. I mean, he's all these re words, he's doing it, but I think he's like giving us a taste of what we were originally, what we lost because we were ruined, and I think he's also pointing us to something that is yet to happen, which is pretty extraordinary. Again, these are bookmarks. They're like mirrors. They image each other. What happened here, I think, is going to be the same thing that happens over here. But we're stuck in the middle right now, and that's the hard part. So when we talk about, like, I'm going to heaven, well, the new heaven isn't here yet. And the new heaven, well, it kind of involves a new earth, actually. When God would come down to speak with Adam and Eve in the garden in the cool of the day, where did he come from? Well, he came from where he lived. And he came down to the earth where man lives. Where's man supposed to live? On the earth. Where's man going to live forever? On a new earth. Well, what's man going to be doing on a new earth? Probably the things that God told him to do when he first made him on the first earth. Did you see how this ties together? So we missed out on this one. Man, Did you ever like fantasize, man, if I could have been like in the garden, I wouldn't have sinned. I wouldn't have done it. And of course, we would have. This is the guarantee we would have. I would have liked to have actually seen it. What did it look like? You know what? I think someday I'm going to see it. We'll get to that. But in the meantime, here we are. You know, the original heaven, you know, the original earth. You know, that earth is fallen now. There's no sin. Well, we've all sinned now. There's no death. Well, death rate has pretty much 100% rate, exception of maybe Enoch and Elijah. But, you know, God may deal with them in a different way at some other point. But, yeah, it's pretty much 100% for most of us. And, you know, there was no curse, and now we're cursed. There's like this paradise, this beautiful place. Now it's paradise lost. You know, God used to fellowship with man. The fellowship was broken. You know, and on and on. Even the beginning of human culture, if you think about this for a minute, Adam was supposed to procreate with his wife, make a bunch of little Adams, and they were to fill the earth, and they were to bring everything that God had given to them to basically make paradise not only just in the garden, but like literally a worldwide kind of environment. I have no doubt that that is what God wanted in the original purpose that he planned for us. Why do we have so many gifts and abilities and talents, each one of us? We're all different, are we not? I like to cut a lawn. I like to be outside cutting a lawn. To me, I take like tremendous pleasure in that. Some people love sitting on a computer and, you know, doing coding and making programs. Some people enjoy building, making a foundation, building a structure, making something, creating something. Some people like riding horses. I mean, we all like different things, right? We're all made a little differently. Could you imagine what it would be like if you had unlimited time and unlimited resources to do kind of what you were made to do? I always find fascinating watching birds in the summertime, especially as they'll catch a wind and they just kind of glide effortlessly, you know, through the air. That's the way God designed them. That's what they were made to do. They bring glory to their Creator as they fly through the air because that's how he made them. You might be an inventor. You might be a builder. You might be a writer. You might be a sculptor. You might be a painter. You might be whatever it is. But like that's something that God has built into you, and he wants that to be cultivated, like forever, basically. Could you imagine if Michelangelo had like, you know, say 100,000 years to continue making sculptures? My goodness, the ones he made in a short lifetime are like astounding. Could you imagine like a Picasso having, you know, why don't you take the next 1,000,000 years off and, you know, experiment with some new colors, you know, on your palette? I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary what we are capable as human beings of achieving. But when sin came in, it stopped it dead in its tracks. Now all of a sudden we're greedy. We got to make money. We got to, you know, cheat the other guy so I get more than he has. Instead of, you know, freely giving of my gifts and ability and time to someone else, now I'm going to hoard them. I'm going to amass as much wealth as I can. And today we see it in our world. We have, you know, probably a handful of people that control most of the wealth and power in the world. They're not going to let it go. You know, the Rothschilds and the J.P. Morgans and Rockefellers. I mean, these people have like trillions of dollars. And like, well, that doesn't seem right. You know, we're struggling to pay our bills. Well, that's going to be gone. That's not going to be there anymore. But the reason it's here is it's because of sin. It messed up everything. Man, it just went through us. It's like a disease. It's like a cancer. You can't get rid of it. The only way you get rid of it is you finally have to die. And then it's finally gone from your body. But we're going to get a re-resurrected body. And it won't be there anymore. But we got to deal with it for the time being. Because that's the world we live in. So what's this present heaven like then? If we're not at the future place yet, well then this heaven must be different than this one. What happens when we die now? Here in this kind of, we call, you know, like an intermediate state. Now, there's only two places we're going, according to Jesus, and I think I'll trust him. He said, hey, if you don't believe in me, if you've never come to me, well, you're going to hell. Sorry. When Jesus used to preach about hell, I don't know this, but I have an imagination. God gave me imagination. This is the way I'm built. I would have to think like he must have almost had like tears in his eyes, telling people, man, Jerusalem, I'd love to gather you like a hen gathers her chicks and just like gather you to myself and love you, take care of you. Like I can do this, and no, we don't want this man to be king over us. He's got a demon inside of him. Get rid of him, kill him. But when he preached on hell, there were three separate historians, Josephus, Philo, and Pliny the Elder. Now, these guys were alive and wrote about the time that Jesus was alive. They said at that time when Jesus was preaching, even on hell, they said you could still see the plains of the cities where Sodom and Gomorrah were. They said they were still smoldering. This is like 2,000 years, probably about 2,000 years after the time of Abraham had gone by. So 2,000 years later, this stuff is like, God like scorched it. As an example, like I am going to bring judgment, by the way. So for 2,000 years, anybody that lived in that part of the world, they knew for sure what that story was. The story of Lot and then Lot's wife and the angels that tried to take Lot out of those wicked cities and the immorality that took place there and the wickedness. God destroyed them. So for 2,000 years, anybody in that part of the world that was walking by, they knew about Yahweh. They knew about his anger against sin. They knew there would be a coming judgment. Just like when Noah was building the ark. It took him, 120 years to build the ark, something like that? For 120 years, everybody in the world knew about Noah. They knew about Yahweh. They knew that there was a judgment coming, but they just refused to accept it, to believe it. So God, he wiped them out, with a flood. And I completely lost my train of thought, but oh, I know. Yeah, so in this intermediate place that we live here now, when we die, we're going one of two places. The unbeliever's going to hell. Period. The rich man and Lazarus. It's a great account. I don't think it's a parable. I think he is saying literally what happens. And then for believers, we get to go to be in the presence of the Lord. What is that like? Oh, it's kind of ephemeral. It's kind of out there. We don't really know. I don't know about that. Here I'll give you a description that the Apostle John wrote, and he was actually commanded to write this. It's funny, when you think of the Apostle Paul, I got caught up in the third heavens, and I've had visions of God. The guy says, no, it's not lawful for you to tell anybody about this, Paul. Mum's a word. Well, why can't I tell people? No, I don't want you to tell anybody. Apostle John, he gets this massive revelation, and God says, I want you to write this down. Write it down. I'm going to dictate it to you. Write it down so everybody else can have it. And so here's just like one section. We could see like what is it going to be like when we die, living in this intermediate period. We missed the Garden of Eden period, and we're not in the new heaven and new earth period yet. So we're in the middle. What happens to us exactly? Well, here's one thing. It says when the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw underneath the altar the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God and because of the testimony which they had maintained. And they cried out with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, will you refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth? And there was given to each of them a white robe, and they were told that they should rest for a little while longer until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who were to be killed, even as they had been, would be completed also. So here's an actually glimpse into this intermediate kind of heaven. Well, these people were living probably in the time of the tribulation, what we call the tribulation, and they were killed because of their faith. Well, they went somewhere. They went to a real place. It says like they're under the altar of God. I don't know what exactly that means, but I know there's an altar in heaven. And they're talking to each other. Lord, it's like, we remember what happened to us. We got killed because we had faith in you. They actually killed us for that. It's like, come on. Go and destroy these people. So these people had a knowledge of who they were. We're going to have a knowledge of who we were when we go to heaven. It's not like we're going to, the old picture that I think Satan made up, on the clouds, picking the harp strings. I mean, that's bizarre. That's totally unreal. But these people knew who they were. They knew their past history. They felt angered at what was happening on earth, and they seemed to know what was happening on earth. So there's a lot. And he says, hey, I'll give you a white robe to wear. Well, they must have had some kind of, maybe a temporary body of some kind. They're wearing something. I don't think this is all just kind of symbolic language, because when you start turning the book of Revelation into just all symbolism, you walk away saying like, well, I guess we really can't know anything. And when John was commanded to write this, it was like kind of for a specific reason. This is the first century. Domitian was the Caesar at that time in Rome, and he began persecuting these Christians. And he began, taking their homes, taking their possessions, throwing them in jail, throwing them into lions in the arena, nailing up and lighting them on fire. I mean, these people were going through some stuff. And like they needed some kind of encouragement. And when we were reading, not that heaven part, the Revelation 21, he says, I'm going to wipe all your tears, there's no more sorrow and all that stuff. These people needed to hear that. But in this intermediate place, it's real. When a Christian dies, he doesn't have far to go. I heard one great description of death. I'm not sure who wrote it. They said it's almost like if you're standing on a dock and there's a big sailing ship, the kind I always picture like the 1800s, these big wooden ships, like the Mayflower or something like that, and they load them up with everything and they set sail and they're going to a new world. They're going somewhere. And they just kind of keep going and going, and people are standing on the shore, and their friends are in the boat, and they're watching them, and like right up to the horizon. It's like eventually it disappears over the horizon, like, oh, they're gone. But the people on the other shore, they see it just coming up on the horizon. They're saying, there they are, they're coming. And I think that's what death is going to be. It's not going to be a very long journey. We're going to close our eyes. The Apostle Paul said when he died, to be absent from his body would be to be present with the Lord. It would happen instantly. He even wanted to go. He said, oh man, it's a far greater thing for me to go and be with the Lord, but it's probably better for you, the church, that I stay here and minister to you. The gospel is new here. I'm still writing all these letters God is giving to me, and for your benefit, I'll do what God has told me. I'll stay here, as long as He wants me here. But like, I'd rather go. It's much better to be there. So yeah, we live in this kind of intermediate place here. And it's a hard place to live. But here's the good part. If we really start thinking about heaven, which I don't think we do. I asked my wife on the way up here, I said, why do you think we don't really talk about heaven? She said, I don't know. She usually does know a lot of stuff. I get a lot of good insight from her. That's why I asked her. But part of me thought, and I could be wrong, that we've become so earthly minded we're of no heavenly good anymore. We want to store our treasures here on the earth instead of storing them in heaven. I think the people in John's time in Revelation, they pretty much had everything taken from them. They were hunted down like beasts and killed. They had really nothing left to give, or they had nothing left to lose at that point in their life. So I think heaven was very real. I sometimes like listening to some of the old Negro spirituals, that were sung in the plantations, back in the 1800s or something. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. They seem to have some of those songs seem to have a grasp that were very heavenly minded. And I think it's because like these people didn't have much. They lived in shacks, they were beaten, they were treated like dogs, most of them. And they worked until they died. So like they didn't have much. So I think heaven was like, man, I can't wait to get there. Compared. But here in our country, in our culture, we're kind of fat, dumb, and happy. So maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. Okay, I'm saying I don't know. But the bottom line is, this is where we're going. I think it's going to be like Eden, and I'll tell you why I think that. Abraham was waiting for a city to see a city. It's written in Hebrews. We don't really find it in the Genesis account. There's no record of God telling Abraham this. But it says he was waiting for a city that had foundations, whose builder and architect was God. So like Abraham knew, there's going to be like this city. I'm not going to be wandering around the desert, and my kids aren't going to be like wandering like nomads here. There's going to be a permanent place for me and my kinfolk to live at some point. It has an architect. That in itself means there was great planning that went into this city. It has a builder. Somebody built it. I don't think God just like spoke it into existence like he did here. I guess he could have, but I'm sure he thought about it before he spoke it, if that's what he did. But the city, we don't have time, but if you read it in 21 and 22, like it even gives like the dimensions of this place. And it says the dimensions, the measurements that are used are the same measurements that the angels use in heaven. Now, why would that even be mentioned? Oh yeah, the measurements here, yep, same ones we use in heaven, same one the angels use, same thing. We take out our measure stick and it's the same one. And if you do the math, depending on who you read, I mean this city, it's anywhere from like 1,300 to 1,500 miles long. I mean that's big. And it's like, I'll just say 1,500. It's like 1,500 miles wide. That's a big footprint. That would cover like half the United States, more or less. That's a big footprint. But not only that, it goes 1,500 miles high. Man, how many levels, how many stories are there? It says the wall, the supporting walls are like 216 feet thick. And it's got these gates. Well, gee, I know what a gate is. I know what a wall is. I know what a city is, and it's got these streets that they're made with gold. I don't know if it's real gold or if it's something translucent you look through. Whatever it is, it's like really, it's a precious material. But it's not like here on Earth where we fight and kill each other for gold. It's like, oh, so plentiful. It's like we pave the streets with this stuff. And it has a garden in there apparently because the tree of life that used to be in the garden for Adam, well, guess where it is? It's in the paradise of God right now. And that almost gets me thinking, what was the earth that was made? Was that really a copy of something that already exists in God's heaven to begin with? When Moses and the different workmen were given instructions to build like the tabernacle, it was basically a copy or a shadow of something that actually existed in heaven, but it was made here on the earth. So it just God didn't say, "Oh, let me just like make something up that they'll have no idea what this is." It's like it probably already existed, and even in the curtains on the temple, they had embroidered in them, I think the cherubim, and they said, "Well, they're gone now. We don't remember really what that looked like anymore. It's gone." But I think they even had representations of these cherubim that protected the holiness of God. And whenever you talk about God and people meeting him, they're always brought up to a temple and to a throne where there's attendants there, where there's creatures there. When Isaiah got his marching orders, he was brought before God. He's, I'm come undone. I'm a sinful man. I live among sinful people. And an angel or something took a pair of tongs. Well, somebody made them. We know what tongs are. They grabbed a coal from the altar. Well, we know what an altar is. And it came and it touched his lips to make him clean. And says like, "Hey, Isaiah, we need something to go for. So here am I, Lord. I'll go." So even when we're taught about heaven it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. There's pieces here and here and here. But when you start putting them together, I think it's almost impossible not to come to the conclusion that where God lives, it's like an incredible civilization. I mean, remember when Gehazi, something like that, Elisha's servant, he was really nervous one time because an army was approaching the city where they were in, and the king that sent him said, "Hey, I want you to bring Elisha back here because every time I try and plan to attack Israel or something, like he spills the beans, he knows what I'm doing somehow, like bring this guy over here." And so as this army approaches, you've got Elisha, he's very calm, but his servant is like really nervous, like, "Oh, come on." It's like, we got to run, we have to do something. He says, "Lord, open his eyes so he can see." And circling on the mountains, what did he see? He sees these chariots, and he sees these horses, and he sees these angel warriors all around them. That's not a figment of his imagination. That's real stuff. There are angels in heaven. There are probably chariots. There are horses. There are probably all kinds of animals in there. So I don't think when we get to like heaven, it's going to be like, oh, wonder what this is. I think we're going to say like, holy cow. I kind of know what that is, but it's like, it far exceeds anything I've ever thought. It's like so much better because I don't have the sin nature anymore. And my eyes can see much more clearly. And my ears can hear. Maybe I'll hear sounds I've never heard before. Maybe I'll see colors I've never seen before. Maybe I'll have an imagination to invent something that I've never thought of before. It's going to be an extraordinary place. But even the name of the city, what's it called? The New Jerusalem. Well, I wonder what Jerusalem means. Never heard of that. It's like, well, of course we heard about it. Maybe there'll be a new New York City or a new whatever. But we even know the name of the city. So it's not like we're guessing, gee, what's a city? I don't know. I've never heard of one. What do you think? Of course we know what cities are. There's people that live there, and there's streets, and there's dwellings, and there's restaurants, and there's music, and there's parks, and there's all kinds of activities going on. Well, we're used to that. We know what that is. Because we were made to live on the earth. And that's what we're going to do, but it's just going to be a new one. The sin's going to be gone. The very curse of the earth that we live on is going to be lifted. There's not going to be thorns and thistles growing up anymore, and wild animals and all that stuff. It's going to be almost like a return to the garden. I would have imagined that, even like the garden that God made here for Adam to live in, Adam and Eve to live on, I would think he probably has lots of those in the New Jerusalem. It's a huge city. I mean, when you even think about, when he says like there's a throne and there's the water, rivers of water, rivers of living water that flow, that goes throughout the city. And it probably leaves a city somewhere, and there's probably lakes and ponds and all kinds of stuff, just like we have here. And it waters the earth and it makes it fruitful. And even the tree of life. We always think about it was just one tree of life in the Garden of Eden. God said, oh my gosh, the main boulevard is like lined with these trees. And every month, they're going to like produce all these different kinds of fruits that you get to eat. Really? Hey, I mean, it's going to be like extraordinary. There'll probably be orchards full of trees of life and all kinds of other stuff. Man, it's going to be, in some ways it's going to be out of this world, but in other ways it's going to be actually in the world, a new world that he's going to make. So I find this to be one of the most encouraging, mind-blowing kind of things to think about heaven, because like, why does anybody talk about it? Like there's a lot of information about it in the Bible. So that's kind of what God laid on my heart. But when we are absolutely positive that we know where we're going, here's how it should affect us. We're not to commit spiritual adultery with the world. I'm in the world, I'm not of it. I really shouldn't be that connected to this world that is going to draw me away from God. When God says I'm to strive against sin, why should I strive against sin? Oh man, because what he's got waiting for me is like so good. I don't want to enter the gates with my head down like, oh Lord, I could have, I hate to even think what I could have been, what I should have been. When we're told to mortify the deeds of the flesh, this should give us a reason to. When we're told to walk in the Spirit, this should give us a reason to do all these things. When we're told to love God with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our strength, everything is in us. Like that, this should give us the reason to do that. What he has in store for us is absolutely incredible. We have a down payment on it right now. The Holy Spirit lives inside believers, and we get glimpses of these things. But man, wait till we see the whole picture, with new eyes, and not through the glass darkly. It's just going to be mind-blowing, I think. Just think of all the people you've known that have gone before you in death. It's just a temporary separation. You're going to see them again. Well, I can't wait. There's certain people I can't wait to see them. But obviously, the first person I want to see is the person who made all this possible, is the Lord. But we're going to have eternity to be eating dinner with each other, exploring the new world together, inventing new things. And it's not only a new earth. I mean, he says, you know, it's a new heaven and an earth. And like, well, where is God now? Well, he's in heaven. But this heaven and the earth are going to be actually connected. The new city, the Jerusalem, it's the bride of Christ, you know, he calls it. I wish we had time to get into that whole area. But it's like it's going to be on the earth. So heaven and earth are pretty much going to be one thing. So when we say I'm going to heaven, well, it's kind of heaven and earth. It's kind of one thing. You can't separate them. When Jesus was getting ready to die, he even told the disciples, he said, like, listen, don't let your heart be troubled. I'm going to be leaving. But like I'm going to my Father's house. And I'm going to prepare a place for you. And don't worry, I'm going to come back and get you so that we can be together. That's really all he wants. And when you look in the language of that, like to the Jews, I mean, if a man became betrothed to a woman, it was kind of like a legal binding contract. They were kind of legally married, even though they hadn't been to the bedroom to consummate it. But the way the law said, they're married, and what the bridegroom would do is he would leave his bride, he would go to his father's house, because they often had like multi-generations living in one place, and he'd go to his father's house and they say, okay, hey, you know, Bill's getting married or John's getting married. Okay, we got to make a space for his wife that he's bringing here. And they would create a new space somewhere in the family compound, and then he would come back and get her, and they would go and they would have the marriage feast, you know, which the book of Revelation says there's going to be this big marriage supper, and then they would consummate the marriage and they'd be together forever, and it's like a new life is starting. That's what's happening with us. So I hope this will give you, like, man, a little spring in your step this week. You know, I hope you maybe feel floating a little bit when you contemplate this, because this is as good as it gets, guys. No matter what you're going through, I reckon that the sufferings of this present world are not even compared. They can't be compared with the glory that's going to be revealed in us. I mean, there's just no comparison. So I'll just close in prayer and ask God to kind of use this to really, really go into our heart and our soul and our spirit and change us. Okay? And pray with me. You know, just don't like zone off and like, you know, I gotta go home and do something. Try and come along. Father, thank you. Thank you for your magnificence. My God, Lord, there is nobody that could invent a story like this. That you created all of this out of nothing. It is astounding to us. There's no end to you. Oh, Lord, this is just like a drop in the bucket. We haven't even like scratched the surface of some of the things that are going on here, but we are just so thankful that you love us and that you've given us an engagement ring. You've given us your Holy Spirit. And that even though you've said that we're actually seated in the heavenlies with you even now. We don't get that, but you said it, that's the way it is, and we believe it. And that you're going to come back for us and you're going to take us home. And you're actually preparing a place for us, our own place that'll be custom made just for us, just like that. Just like that garden was prepared for Adam and then Eve. It was like custom made just for them. And I think we're going to have those same kind of places made just for us. Oh, it's going to be incredible. But help us to think on these things. You've even told us that we are to think about heavenly things. And help us to fight against sin and our old nature and the corruption that is in our body. Let us see ourselves as virgins that are betrothed to Christ. And when we obey you, it's out of a love for you and out of a reverence for you. Oh, God, just draw us all close this week. Use a song, use a conversation, use a message, use something. But we just ask that the body of Christ would be built up and edified and made stronger and made just a living, powerful testimony in this world to the people that we come in contact with, so that when they see us, they say, like, what do those people have? What do they know? Look at the way they behave. Look at their poise under pressure. Look at the way they love each other. We just ask that we would be what you want us to be. We just ask this in Jesus' name for your glory. Amen.